Specifically,
Great.
the reuse of YouTube videos, like video essays and the like, because obviously they take a long time to make. A lot of YouTuber essayists have issues with people reacting to their content or not reacting like hard enough, um, or things along those lines. So I think just from the layout on my screen, we'll start with Alec for
Hello.
your opening argument.
Sure. I guess one of the things I was a little bit unclear about, if I may ask a question real quick, are we debating more on the premise that we should be allowed to do React content, or just that, uh, it would be more useful to consider other content methods?
Whatever
Because I
whatever
think my
way you
answer
want
would
to pull this question, go for it.
sure. Okay, so I have kind of two positions on this. I think that React content in general should largely be allowed. I don't really see a good use in putting terms of service against it, uh, unless it's like unless you're using it in like a very hurtful way somehow. But other than that, I think that it should be allowed at the end of the day. Like if you're just sitting there watching something with somebody, I don't see the harm that that's doing to anybody. I will say that the as far as etiquette goes, unless you're like, reacting to a Ben Shapiro thing or something where it's like you're obviously critiquing it, you're inputting value. I think as far as etiquette goes, you should take into consideration what the person who made the original content you're reacting to has to say about you reacting to it, especially if you enjoy it and you respect that person. But again, I think that's more a matter of etiquette than like hard and fast TOS rules. So that's kind of my take on it.
Okay, double try.
Yeah, so I think that well, it's impossible to necessarily put a clear line of, what is transformative content versus what isn't. I still think that if we're being honest, we have some semblance that there is a clear difference between someone sleeping and watching Naruto or Death Note versus someone making a detailed attempt to, critique like a political commentary piece. As a result, I think that transformative content is really awesome and definitely is a big part of this space. However, I think the current meta has been a little bit too lazy on the part of Twitch streamers, mainly. And that what we should be kind of striving to do is build a better content creator to content creator community where people are working, and there's more responsibility on Twitch streamers to actually get permission and seek, sources of driving their audience towards other people that are in the YouTube space and are making these videos.
Makes sense to me. Graham, you're up.
Okay, so I think a couple things need to be cleared up before we kind of dive into everything. I don't think anyone on this panel necessarily thinks that, watching Naruto or in, Pokemon's case, Avatar: The Last Airbender is something that we should be doing. I think in an ideal world, it would be super cool if we could just hang out and watch episodes of Attack on Titan on stream. That'd be really cool. But, that's outside of the realm of reason, I think. But if we're talking about just if I pull up like a new philosophy tube video and I need to email Abigail Thorne and get permission to watch their video and hope that within 2 weeks I get permission, we do live form content. We don't do structured, semi-scripted, or fully scripted content. It's not like we have a timeline where we can hopefully get permission from people to do things. We kind of have to do things on the fly, and it's, in this case, for streamers, better to ask forgiveness than permission, I think. So as far as like copyrighted anime, currently airing TV shows, like I'm not going to watch, the current season of American Idol on my stream. But if I want to go look back at, hilarious clips from fails on American Idol, I don't watch that on my stream anyway. But if that's something that someone wants to do, I think that's totally cool. As far as like what is transformative and what is acceptable React content, literally everything we do on this platform is React content. If we're looking at Twitter, we're doing React content. If we're looking at the news, if we're looking at current events, we're reacting and giving commentary on the news. Whether it's good commentary, that's entirely up to the community of that person. So that's really all my take really is. So
Okay, MTG, you're up.
Yeah, so I think that it necessarily has to be significantly transformative, right? You actually have to be able to create a new piece of media that, if someone had previously already watched the old piece of media, or someone who hasn't, would still gain something from either watching you post hoc or rewatching the original piece of media before you have done so, right? Otherwise, what's stopping them from engaging with your piece of content that someone else has genuinely put their labor into creating in the first instance? I understand, obviously, it's different when there's larger content creators that you can't actually get access to be able to get permission with which to review their content. But if you're not being sufficiently transformative, then it's just content theft as far at that point in regards. Again, I care about the labor that goes into the production of these things, and that's that has then you reacting to it has no material gain for the person whose labor has been used in that way, unless you're being sufficiently transformative to create a new piece of content in that regard. I'm glad that we're talking about this from a kind of etiquette perspective. I don't think any of us really want to see a change in TOS with which to restrict anything. That's definitely not the kind of road that I think anything should go down here. We shouldn't be talking about a matter of law or a matter of DMCA. It should be about how we as content creators our using our platforms in a way that we feel is ethical, the people whose content that we're using. I think there's a few things that I would say I would think is some kind of prerequisites for if you are using someone's content, not to respond to critique, as you would with someone you dislike, say Ben Shapiro or Sargon of Akkad or whatever, assuming you're a leftist. But if you're just creating commentary on a piece of media that you agree with, I think you really have to be significantly transformative to justify that. And like, so also, say for example, I was watching a debate between. I was trying to critique President Sunday debating Vosh on something, and I couldn't add anything particularly good to that piece of content, so I just turned it off. I said, "Look, if you want to finish that piece of content, you go watch it in your own time. But I'm not going to create something transformative about this. So I don't feel like that is ethical for me to end up watching that in its entirety on my own stream when that's not my piece of content with which to do that with."
Okay, we're going to go for open forum debate for now. I'm hoping for some light moderation, mostly because I'm tired and I don't want to have to shout.
Touché.
There is a reason CTV isn't here.
The hippy dippy champion himself.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious what you guys think about boiling labor down to how easy it is. Because you could make the argument that Twitch streaming is easier in some respects than sitting down and editing a YouTube video for, that lasts like an hour. But where does that lead us? Like, does that mean that, the harder the labor is, the more valuable it is? Because I don't think that's necessarily true. Then you start getting into like, well, an office job versus like a coal miner, which one is more valuable? And to me, it's like, I don't know if I want to ascribe value that way. There are people on Twitch who come to Twitch because of the chat, because of the culture, because of the community, who like watching the Twitch streamer who would not have otherwise found your YouTube content. There's a very, very from what I've seen, and a very small crossover between the people who would just as easily watch these video essays on their own as opposed to watch it on a Twitch stream. Again, I think a lot of it's a matter of etiquette and shouting these people out and making it clear that they did work very hard on these. I do take some issue with the way Hassan has treated some of the what's her name again? Yeah. I don't like the way that he treated a lot of that. I think he's a little bit haughty lately, if I may use a high level ideas term. But other than that, I kind of take issue with I kind of take issue with like saying that Twitch streamers are not providing as much value, because again, there are people there watching it, so it's like, where do you draw that line?
I'm not saying you're not adding value, but the big issue comes from the
Right.
fact that, if you're not compensating someone for the labor that they've used to help you get to the point where you can create that content, right? That's the issue where it comes in. So to make an incredibly crude comparison, if you use a machine with which to build a chair, right? Then
Should I be compensating Ben Shapiro?
Well, no, because if you're responding to it, that's not the same as, using it to react to, right?
Am I not responding to it by reacting to it?
I think there's a clear comparison there. If you're because if you pull up a philosophy tube video, right, for take a previous example, and you'd have never watched this before, and you entirely agree with the kind of premise that's being put out here, and all you're adding to it is like, yes, that's good, that's fine. But if you know that there's a piece of content you're specifically disagreeing with, that you're trying to actually actively critique, I think there's a meaningful difference there.
So your line that you draw is whether or not you 100% agree with the content.
Well, no, I think the line is which is that you can necessarily guarantee you're pulling up someone's content you disagree with on a Twitch stream, then you're going to create something transformative out of that disagreement. You can't know until you've watched the entire video in its entirety whether or not you're going to create transformative content out of something that you genuinely agree with. I think that's the
So,
big difference there.
So Ben
okay.
Shapiro could, in theory, make a video that I 100% agree with. I have agreed with him on some points. Does that mean if I agree with that video that I then have to compensate him?
I think that whether or not you agree or disagree with them is kind of irrelevant. The main idea is like, what are you doing with that content? So for example, let's say I do disagree with the Ben Shapiro video. If I play the whole 30-minute thing and just say, man, this guy's a fucking idiot, I don't think that counts as transformative content. And I think Ben Shapiro actually does have fair right to DMCA strike me or copyright strike me. I am essentially stealing his content and using it. At the very least, my viewers are getting, the enjoyment of watching him say some dumb stuff. However, I agree with what you said. I think it is a really difficult thing at times to ask these people, like, oh, do I need permission to watch your video? Especially if you're asking someone like Ben Shapiro, he's never going to reach you. And even if it's a smaller person that you disagree with, they're never going to say like, hey, yeah, that's fine. You could just make like a hate video about me. However, I think that's where like the lines of like what is considered transformative that needs to be a little bit stricter. And I think we need to hold people to higher standards so that there's no blurriness there, whether or not it is or isn't.
Okay, so I have I have several points I'd like the two of you to kind of address if we could kind of get to them at some point. One, we need to, if we're going to take a hardline stance on this, if this is some kind of policy that we in this community kind of want to follow, one, we have to say where the line of sufficiently transformative content is. Two, what content is out of bounds. Three, what the expectation is when practicing React content. So for example, let's say I'm talking to my chat about trans issues, okay? And I bring up an Abigail Thorne video to give an example of like how you would present this, because I'm not rhetorically skilled enough, and I think that this is a good example. Should I show them and be like, hey, this is a really good thing that we can watch together and we can learn together? Or do I say, here's the link to it, go watch it on your own time?
Yeah. So
Where
I
is
think, like,
where is the line of like sufficiently transformative content, and like where is it out of bounds? And again, why would I reach out to a content creator who has put this content not behind a paywall? I'm not saying I subscribe to the Antifada and then I play one of their podcasts that I have paid for. This is open library content. It's on YouTube for free. If a content creator sees that you have watched it and has a problem with it and reach out, that's it. You don't watch their content anymore. But it is open. It is in the public.
Well, as I was saying
so-
before, I don't think this shouldn't be a case of we have some kind of rule set that everybody has to follow. I'm not about to talk about a change in terms of service or some
Right,
kind
it's
of
like expectations.
official guidelines we have to follow. But I'm making an ethical claim about the level to which who are people who are engaging in React content should try and do things that are as ethical as possible. Right? Again, only everyone's opinion on what constitutes transformative is going to be completely different. Right? We all have completely different opinions on what that is. It's trying to come to some kind of accord where we think a reasonable bounds of that are.
But what's
As
the
for-
expectation then?
Again, as far as I'm concerned, creating a piece of content that someone who has originally watched the piece of content would gain from you then interacting with your piece of content. Otherwise, why would they watch the original piece of content in the first place? Especially if after your Twitch stream, you're then uploading that to YouTube, where though there are probably plenty of people who have never watched Adam Something's Dubai is a mocker of the 21st century because they're too busy watching it on Hassan Arbi VODs on YouTube because it's been put on someone's Twitch stream, clipped, and then re-uploaded, right?
Yeah,
even if
because it
even
gave
if- and
additional commentary.
The question is, did it though? And that's why it needs to be transformative enough to make that interaction reasonable. Because if it was just Hassan's chair watching the video, that's different, right? because then or if it was just Hassan saying, just pausing the video and go, oh wow, would you look at that every 5 minutes, which again would
So
I
the expectation is that
Excuse
it
you,
is
I would appreciate if you'd not shit on the chair. He's my favorite character.
true.
I mean, he's
Better
definitely
takes.
he's definitely had better takes on the Ukraine conflict than Hassan has. Let's be real.
Very good takes. The
So
back and
it
forth
is
between him and Hassan is
literally
amazing.
just like by person basis of whether or not you found the additional commentary acceptable.
Well, I think that the problem is that you're never going to find like a clear. You ask like, what is the specific thing? That's impossible to do, right? It's kind of this idea of Loki's wager. You're never actually going to find, but that doesn't mean that we can't talk about it and we can't have some semblance of what should be construed as good content and what is obviously lazy content. Like you mentioned, the whole Pokemon and Naruto thing. I think we all agree that's it's like realms beyond what none of us would consider acceptable, right? So when we look at what transformative content is actually comprised of, usually it's considered something that's new. This is a very broad thing, so it's kind of hard to say. It has a different or furthers a like a different purpose, right? Um, or it does not, or it has to not substitute the original work, right? So, like you mentioned, let's say I pull up an Abigail Thorne video, or for example, let's say I put up a Vosh video, right? And I say, okay, I want to watch his debate and see the like rhetorical strategies that he's doing, and I want to analyze that. That's a different purpose than what the actual debate was. However, if I just sit there and say like, oh yeah, I agree with this point, this is a pretty good point, kind of thing, I don't know if that's good enough, or if that is actually serving a different purpose. I wouldn't really consider that fair.
That's for what it's worth. I agree with that point.
Okay, so if
Okay,
we're
you need
going
to
to make
transform it a
the
little bit more there, okay? You can't just say I agree.
okay, so two things. So if we're going to make the notion that if you are looking at someone said Adam something. So if we're looking at Adam something's ANCAP video where he constructs an ANCAP society and sees what it looks like, and we upload the clip of that to YouTube, there is an argument to be made that you are essentially, with additional commentary, re-uploading their content. That is an argument I can hear of re-uploading the content. Doing it live on stream, I don't care about. But re-uploading it onto YouTube, I can hear that argument. But what I'm not
what is the
hearing
difference
is
there between re-uploading it and literally just watching it on your Twitch channel?
no, I don't think there's. Well, I think there is a difference actually. It's because you're live. You can do within Twitch TOS anything you want while you're live. Looking at a video.
I'm not necessarily talking about like Twitch TOS here. I think staying on the legal side is really difficult because there's very, very little precedent over what is and what isn't fair use. I'm talking more about like moral or ethical. So do you think that you should be allowed to do literally just watch someone's video?
Yeah, I think you can watch whatever you want.
I think
Okay,
that there's
and sorry, just to clarify, what is the difference there between doing that and re-uploading a YouTube video?
Here, if I may,
Because it's solidified, it's on a platform now. You have just
Right,
because I could pause it once and say this is really funny, and then that's it, and then re-upload it, and I would find that obviously bad. But I can hear the arguments for giving consistent, epic pause champ every 10 seconds like commentary. I can hear the argument for re-uploading that. Because, yeah, you are kind of just re-uploading their content with your commentary on it, which I think is still fine, but I can at least hear that. But if we're talking about doing it live, who cares?
Well, sure, and if you're commenting every 10 seconds and you're pausing, I think most people would consider that transformative content. I mean, like, if we go to, like, the example of, like, playing a video while you're just, like, doing something else entirely, giving, like, virtually no commentary or, like, very little commentary, maybe, like, once every minute. Do you think that is an acceptable thing to do on Twitch simply because it's a live platform?
Mm-hmm.
I would posit that just pausing in itself, even if you're doing it like every 5 minutes or whatever, does not mean that you're making it transformative content. I'm sure you guys know this, but like, I feel like this idea that like you have to pause in order to have a transformative piece of media where you're reacting to something is like the standard. You don't have to do that. Sometimes you can just watch the video all the way through and then reply to it. Hold on my camera. And then reply to it at like the end, give your final thoughts and opinions and such. I think that would be just fine. Now, most people don't do it that way, but in addition, on the flip side of that, even if you're pausing it, like let's say every 2 minutes, you can literally just be pausing it to respond to a chatter about something that's completely off topic. I see Twitch streamers do this all the time. They go off on wild tangents that are not related to the current video, and then the entire video slides by. 2 minute pauses in between this 20-minute video. The video never gets discussed, never gets reacted to. So like, I think we need to break it down a little bit more than just, are you pausing enough? You know,
Yeah,
or are
when
you
when
like
I talk about pausing, I mean pausing to give comment. If you pause to like sneeze, I don't think that necessarily counts. You know.
right,
I would
right? But
also ask.
I think that the
yeah,
thing is though is that like I think that like the important thing to me again is like is it actually substituting the original work, right? So like you mentioned, okay, let's watch the video. Let's say it's like if it was like a 1 minute clip, sure, I understand. But if it's like a 30-minute video and you are literally just saying like, oh, let's watch the whole thing and then I'm gonna give some commentary about it, I don't really know if that's fair because you are essentially just that's 30 minutes of your content that you would not have had that video not existed. That you are
but
just essentially
you have an
stealing free game
audience.
content.
You have
Of
an
course,
audience that's
yeah.
all you're basically sitting in this little online theater and you're all watching it together. You know, teachers do this all the time. Well, they'll watch like a 10, 20, sometimes an hour, 2 hour long video. And then the teacher afterwards will talk about it. The college professors do this. You know, this is part of many people's jobs. You know, adding commentary to it and making sure that your audience understands what they just watched is important and it's transformative and it is valuable. You know, and
Yeah,
I think
so
that
so
saying
I
it's
want to I
not
want to be
is,
clear. There is a value, absolutely, right? If there
yeah.
wasn't a value, people wouldn't be watching it. People enjoy the watch party atmosphere. People enjoy, maybe the Twitch chat that comes along with it. There
Right.
absolutely is something there. What I want to be clear about though is that I don't know if that value is fair or if that's the content that we should be like promoting, right? Because essentially these people are just curating. You mentioned the idea of teachers giving like 2 hour things, and that actually does fall largely under fair use when you're using something for a nonprofit or an educational, for that kind of situation or that circumstance, right?
But they're on the clock.
When you are doing a Twitch stream, that is your business that you are running. That is your brand that you are building, your content that you are producing. I don't think that is the same as a teacher using it in an educational purpose.
So then should we sue the school for fair use then?
No, because it is fair use because
Um,
the school is an educational.
yeah, exactly.
Or it's
It's an education.
a DMs or whatever it is. You know what I meant? Copyright law. So
Yeah,
I
and
guess
just
I guess you could just
to
take
be
that up
clear,
to the level of like who owns the school and then sue that person. You know what I
no,
mean?
and just to be clear, just because this thing comes into practice, it doesn't mean that just because you're a nonprofit use. I can imagine that if you had like a let's say like a coding class in high school and all you did every single day was play like Khan Academy or whatever the current coding videos are, I don't think that would count as fair use either, right? I'm just saying that there's different levels that are taken when they consider things fair use or not, and using things in a nonprofit thing is typically a very very different thing than using it to
And it's
make your
explicitly
own
stated
content
in
out
the
of
fair
it.
use in the fair
Yes.
use law as well. If it is used for educational purposes, I mean, again, I don't really want to make a specific point about what is or isn't legal. I'm sorry, what is or isn't ethical. But in the same way as a teacher using a particular video to teach a certain subject, how is it any different for you inviting your mates around to watch a DVD? In neither of these situations, things are being explicitly monetized. Whereas when you're using someone else's content to then stream on your Twitch channel, you're making money off subs and bits and donos because this is your profitable business that you're running there with it, and you're using somebody else's content with which to do that, right? And again, I have no issue if it's being sufficiently transformative, but if you could literally have a Twitch channel where you sit there and not actually to provide sufficient commentary and then make however much money from streaming it to your viewer base. I mean, that's what XQC has basically made a living off at this point.
Okay, so I have a couple questions. One, I'm assuming that everyone here would consider themselves like leftist,
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
Yep.
Libs. Ew. I'm a
Goddamn
tanky.
liberal. Okay. So
I know, I
okay,
think I'm
well,
the lib.
one, if everyone here considers themselves like at least leftist, then we would all agree with the notion that there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. This is a moral argument that we're making here. It is not ethical. Second, how long has everyone been streaming here? I've been streaming for about a year. I know Alex been streaming for a little over a year. I'm not
Almost here.
almost. I don't know exactly how long you guys have been streaming yourselves, but everyone here has sat in a stream with one viewer and talked into nothing and gave absolutely dog water commentary. So if we're gonna sit here and say that, well, there has to be like a acceptable threshold of like good commentary, well, you just cut out 90% of streamers, more than that. Everyone's given dog water commentary. Everyone doesn't know what they're talking about. So, well, now we've just gatekept behind some imagined moral wall why we can't look at content with our chat. It's just
Hold up a second.
absurd to me.
Hold up.
Excellent point.
Yeah, go
Just
ahead.
1 second. 1 second. 1 second. You can respond in a second. Graham, I love you. Please stop deep throating your mic. It's making my ears hurt.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's my noise gate. It's how close I have to be.
Oh,
Unless
Calm
they want to
down,
hear Gordo
son.
in the background, and then we can do like audio react content.
It's just every now and then you kind of move a little bit closer, and every now and then it gets a little bit peaky, and my
Oh, I'm
ears go,
sorry.
ow.
I'll try and keep it at an acceptable distance.
Thank you. MTG, go ahead.
No,
So
you're good,
first of
love.
all, yeah, no. So first of all, the idea that there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, it does not give people a carte blanche who then consume as unethically as they then desire just because of that, right? I don't think that that's necessarily going to wave that away.
Sure, this
Um,
is why we say, hey, chat, here's the link to this video. Go follow these guys.
I mean, I think that a reasonable thing that everyone should really be doing
Mhm.
is that they should be putting the link in their chat and say, look, play this in the background. Then however many people are watching, if we're all doing that, that we're adding to the view count, adding to the algorithmic boost, is essentially just everybody watching at the same time having
That's
commentary.
crazy. That's
It's a
not a
high
real
bar.
I mean,
thing.
literally, Ludwig was doing that when he was watching GeoWizard on his channel. He was explicitly saying we should all go watch that. You should open that your YouTube browser at the same time. Now, I don't think your entire chat is going to do that. In fact, I know that your entire chat is just
Yeah.
there's no chance they're going to do that. But you are at least mitigating as much as you can the fact that you are using someone else's content without, like, essentially, to be able to monetize your own content at the end of the day. Second of all, as a leftist, I am a materialist, and I believe in the material harm that is done is where we should be thinking ethically, right? We always look into the material impact, and a 1-2 viewer Andy streamer not actually doing a sufficiently transformative React content, I don't really care. Do I think that it's ethically justifiable? Probably not really. But do I actually care because of the actual material impact is very minimal? No, not really. But there are plenty of streamers who have genuinely large audiences who are essentially using, especially people smaller than them. That's when it's materially even worse, when the content creator they're using has nowhere near the reach or size that they do, and then they're making stratospherically more content and more money out of the content that they're using of other people's that their labor has gone into, and that has far more material impact, I would say, than what your point previously was about a nothing streamer. But then again, at the end of the day, I'm a 3-4 view Andy streamer at this point, and I would still for my own personal ethical concern. As I said before, if I feel like I'm reacting to something and my commentary does not create something significantly transformative, I'll just turn off the video. Chat can go watch it in their own time if they really want to, but unfortunately, I can't. I don't think I can create something that is properly transformative out of this piece of content. So I'll just stop. Simple.
And then
It
just to
really
add
feels
super,
like
super
this
quick.
conversation is just about people who are mad that larger streamers are able to get away with reacting less hard than smaller streamers can get away with.
I would also like to add, I don't see the material, like actual harm being done by playing these. You can say that they're not, they're not making. Again, I stand by the point that people who watch Twitch streamers are not on YouTube searching for YouTube content. It just doesn't happen that often. And if it does, they're searching for Twitch streamer content on YouTube. This is, and the issue that I take with what you said is, let's look at, just as an example, the music industry, right? When larger companies take your music and then claim it under their name, you are no longer able to use that music for yourself to make money, right? That is exploitation. In the sense of a larger Twitch streamer taking a smaller YouTuber's content and making money off of that, there's no material harm being done there. It's just that he's now making money from your content. Now, you can get into the nitty-gritty ethics of that, but I just don't see the same material harm being done as opposed to something like the music industry, which I brought up. I will be clear, but I think making that distinction and understanding that you're not really taking money from that person. Could you be giving them money? Sure, I think that'd be great, but you're not taking anything from them either. At the end of the day,
I think that the idea is it's not that necessarily that you're taking stuff from them, right? We can argue that in some ways you are kind of taking away eyes that could be on them, because, for example, you guys mentioned, like people who are watching Twitch aren't watching YouTube. Well, they don't have to watch YouTube. They could just watch Twitch and they can see all of they could watch like XQC or Misgift. They'll watch all the big YouTube videos anyways. They don't have to spend any time on the YouTube algorithm, right?
My main thing is it's about the chat and about the streamer you're watching and their personality and their reactions. It's not about the content itself all the time. You know what I mean? Like, Hassan still maintains more than half of his viewership even after he's done with politics,
No, absolutely. And I would argue that a lot of times React content is arguably more fun than the video itself. And that's exactly the problem, right? So, for example, I know that Destiny has talked about this, that when a new Dylan Burns video comes out, a lot of people in his audience will not watch the video. They would rather wait to see their favorite streamer make a reaction. The same thing happens with, for example, Asmongold. I know personally that when a new Channel 5 video came out, that's the one with Andrew Callaghan, I think. I would rather watch Asmongold's reaction than actually watch the video itself because it was more interesting to me, right? That's exactly what the problem is. There is that value that's added, but you're essentially profiting off somebody else's work, and then no
In
effort is being done to actually drive audience that way. We mentioned earlier about like not putting a link. Hassan does not have any links to the YouTube videos that he watches and uploads to his YouTube.
well, yeah, and I think
And he's
that's
making
scummy.
millions of views, and it's really scummy. And I think that needs to be like, it needs to be shut.
I think in an ideal world, right, we would be able to indicate very easily with like one click on our YouTube videos, you are okay to react to this in whatever way you want. You are only okay to react to this if it's transformative, or you're not okay to react to this at all, right? Which of course would, if you're, I guess you would have to somehow work around if you're critiquing it, you know, if fair use laws. But ideally, between people who are, you know, amicable with each other, that would be the case. You know what I mean? People who agree with each other, etc. We don't currently live in that world. We don't currently have that function. The next best thing would be indicating, like in the title or the comments, that you're okay with people reacting to it. But like in the meantime, my personal thing is how what is the word? Not convenient, but like how utilitarian is it to expect people to email every single video creator that they want to react to? Like if I want to react to Jubilee, I'm never going to get an email back from them. So it would be much better for me to just, like, for my purposes, knowing that I'm not going to get, you know, and I know you're talking about mostly smaller creators, but for the sake of consistency, you know, I'm not going to get uh, copyright stricken from them. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And if they have an issue with it, they can come back afterwards and say, hey, you know, can you take this down? And then I guess I would be obligated if it's not
Yeah,
transformative enough. You know what I mean?
there's a couple issues there. I think like you said, like, oh, well, it's okay, and if they have a problem, just like they'll take it down because I can kind of get away with it. I don't know if that's a good moral argument to say that, like, oh, well, I can get away with it because there's too many people doing this thing and I'm too small, therefore it's okay to do. That's why people do it. Obviously, that's why everyone on this platform does it. But I don't think that's like a good enough argument. And then I know you
But what
mentioned
are
that
you
like
getting away
it's
with, really?
well, you're getting away with using their content that, like, if it was, let's say if it was like Hassan or something doing that, they might have more, like, there would just be more eyes, so they would be able to DMCA strike him, right? I know you mentioned that it's ridiculous to expect people to go and email every single person, especially because a lot of them would not respond to you. And firstly, I would argue that even making the attempt is already a pretty good thing. It kind of shows that you're at least trying to get in contact with them and using their stuff. But I would also say that, like, it's equally incredibly stupid to assume that, like, oh, it's on the YouTube video to scout through every single Twitch stream and find, oh, you were using my one video in September. I don't want you doing that again. I don't want you making, like, that's crazy, right? That's why I think it needs to be a mutual connection. There needs to be respect on both parties, where content creators should try to reach out, especially if you're a big one, being like, hey, I just want to use your channel. Is it fine if I use your videos? If you have a problem, talk to me. And then on the part of YouTube videos, I know you mentioned music. Music has a really cool thing where they'll be like, hey, you can use our video. It's totally awesome. Here's like the link. You just like put this link, put our YouTube link here, and you can use our music. We will have no fucking problem with it. That's like that's what I want to see out of like the YouTube Twitch partnership, and I think it requires responsibility on both ends. Twitch streamers just right now have no responsibility, and I think that's why so many are kind of hesitant to move towards that direction, because we can just get away with it right now. Nobody cares.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of in a new era right now, and you know, we're kind of pioneers. Twitch is very new, relatively speaking, especially the current era of Twitch. So I think we're gonna like, yeah, we're gonna have a bumpy road, but I think at the end of the day, we are all relatively speaking on the same side. We want what's best for everybody. We want to make sure everybody's getting compensated properly for their work. Um, so I think we can agree as far as that goes. I would love, in an ideal world, right? You know, I'm a socialist. I would love to see people just be able to make YouTube content and not have to worry about their rent check. You know what I mean? Like that would be my ideal world. And then that way, it wouldn't matter as much if people are reacting to their content and like sitting there like, it just doesn't matter because they're not worried about paying their rent. They're not worried about living paycheck to paycheck. So that's unfortunately that's not the world we live in, and that's the pretty much the only reason that we're having this conversation. So um, I think at the end of the day, we kind of all agree on the basic premise of making sure that we're just being polite to each other and not being douchebags.
Yeah, and,
Yeah, I
and to
think
kind of
that's
add on to Alex's point, I'm sorry, no justice. Do you mind if I take this real
yeah,
quick
yeah,
just
go
to
for it. Yeah,
add
yeah,
on
it's
one
cool.
thing?
No worries.
Yeah, so I think generally that this conversation, unironically, is more damaging to us as streamers and in no way beneficial to YouTube content creators. The actual conversation we need to be having is the compensation that content creators on YouTube and streamers on Twitch are actually getting from the companies that we actually work for. And this conversation is, generally more beneficial for Twitch and for YouTube, not for us. And if we actually wanted to tackle the real issues of compensation, then we would tackle it that way. And instead of trying to do this infighting of you're using content the wrong way or not the way that I want you to use it, which I think is really just rad lib stuff.
I think I just kind of like disagree. I know you're saying that like, yeah, it hurts them, but I think that like when you create content, it is your copyright. You do kind of own it in a sense. And I think that that does extend to YouTube videos as well. If you create a YouTube video, I think you do have fair use of it. And if somebody wants to use it, I think that they should be making efforts to at least credit you or to be creating new. I don't think you have the ability to just use someone else's content free of charge, staring at it. I don't think that's like a fair thing.
I mean, we don't like it, but again, it's on a free platform. And like I said, like saying, hey, I like this channel. This is, this is Philosophy Tube. Go check out their content. Go subscribe. They're a really cool content creator. That's all very easy to do. And linking in chat is also very easy to do. But ultimately, if we have a problem with people doing React content and we think we're stealing from them, we only have to look at their social blade to see when a larger content creator started watching their videos regularly. And we can see the React Andy content does help them. It does bring more eyes to their content. It does see a spike in their metrics. So if we're gonna sit here and pretend like it's hurting them, it's objectively not. What's
So
hurting them
you
is
say that, but
this
it
kind of
doesn't.
conversation.
That doesn't seem to be the case. So I've seen at least two people. I saw JXE talk about how their spike was marginal, right? And now you might say this whole drama content has caused a lot of attention towards them. That's fair. I understand. But that's on them that they've essentially been able to market this drama. That's a separate thing. The views itself from watching that video, I think was like I think this is something
200
like they
views.
got 150 views. Like that's
Yeah.
that's a drop in the bucket, right? I think Kraut talked about this as well, that when his videos are, viewed extensively, it's also a very small thing. He got a large spike in popularity because Destiny invited him on to talk about this stuff, and so he got that like repeated content. But I don't think that simply watching it has shown that there is spikes. Sure, it does happen, and maybe you have some more analytics. I'm kind of just going off anecdote because I don't have the statistics of every single one of these YouTube people, but I haven't really seen this like massive growth from watching a video, especially when, again, you mentioned, yes, it's really easy to link stuff, but that's not what's happening right now. That people are not linking YouTube
Yeah, 'cause
videos.
I think my main argument is there are so many incredibly low opportunity cost things that people who are engaging in React content could be doing, with which to be able to make what they're doing in some way a mutually beneficial transactional relationship between between the content creator and the person who's reacting to it, and they're just not doing it. And they're just not engaging in things they really should be engaging, as far as I'm concerned, from that's a very incredibly low opportunity cost. That's my main gripe, really, as from plenty of things that we have outlined in this debate already.
I hate to
Okay,
be a
so go ahead.
yeah, okay. I hate to be a vote with your dollar, Andy, but if it is like not transformative, then why are like 20,000 people there? You know what I mean? Like that would be my question.
I think that you're conflating transformative with some kind of like value, right? So, for example, if I was to stream like a movie, I bet a lot of people would watch. I bet they'd actually really enjoy it and stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that I'm doing anything to transform the content or to necessarily provide something new, right? I'm just simply curating. you could think about this, for example, if I was to get a whole bunch of like food from all the best restaurants in the area and bring them and then sell them as my own. Would that really be fair to say that it's my thing? Even if I add like a little bit of mustard to the best burger, and is that fair to
I
call
don't
it
think
mine and
anyone
start
is watching
profiting?
a Second Thought video and saying this is my video, though.
They're not, but they're profiting from it, and that's kind of the point.
Okay. I mean, Second Thought is an excellent example to look at content creators whose careers were made from Andy content. Second Thought, Not Just Bikes, Are Changing Climate, Adam Something. These are all people who, were it not for, and we'll use Hassan again, Hassan showing his audience of 40,000 people every day this content. Hell, I subscribe to those channels and I watch them on my channel now because I found them there, and I look forward to whenever they come out. And I tell people to go subscribe to them. I think these kind of people go watch this on another tab while we're watching it on stream. I think it's silly, especially for people who are like, I have a very international audience. I think most of my audience actually watches on mobile. They can't watch a
Well, you
YouTube
say it's
video
silly, but
while
like
I'm
keep
watching
in
on
mind it's
stream.
already happening. I have a lot of streamers who do that. Like they'll watch, for example, when Arcane came out, they had all their viewers go watch Arcane on their own tab because obviously they can't stream Arcane on their own channel. Amazon watch
When it
parties, I
came
know they
out,
weren't super successful, but that had the same premise, right? I believe you could watch the streamer themselves, like their webcam, but if you can only you could see the content if you were subscribed to like the Amazon Prime service or whatever. But this has happened before. And again, I want to be clear that like if you are watching this stuff and I think that like it's on you to put a little bit more commentary and to create more content than just what's being shown.
I mean, if there was an integrated watch together function for Twitch, I think that would be very dicey as far as copyright goes. I think that's leading down the path of an adpocalypse issue. But if there was like a YouTube watch together function integrated into Twitch, where if I pulled up like the most recent Vice episode and it pulled up on your desktop feed, that would be kind of cool. But that's not what we have. And I think it's literally, I think it just boils down to you guys expect people to do things the way you're doing them with, from what I can tell, marginal, if not zero, like change in anyone's metrics. I mean, it's great that you guys do it this way, but these conversations, ultimately, they don't benefit the streamer. They don't benefit the YouTube content creator. I really think it's just concern trolling.
Thing is,
I think at the end of
I fundamentally disagree with this idea that it's non-impactful for. I mean, again, I'm mostly talking about the larger creators here because this is where the actual material impact comes from. Random 4 Andy streamers reacting to someone's content literally means nothing as far as.
Okay, where's the equilibrium? You have to
Again, it's
explain if there's
again,
a
it's
larger streamer who's doing it, and there's an impact, and there's a smaller streamer who's doing it, and there's no.
Graham, let her fucking
Yeah?
finish.
And again, it's just
Okay.
Luke. Again, it's just Loki's wager at the end of the day. So we can have arguments about where the specific number lies at the end of the day, right? We can until account. We can try and eke out that line wherever we can. But then again, the line doesn't exist, right? There's going to be some level of give and take. We're going to talk about, in general terms, smaller streamers and larger streamers. Because that's where the material impact lies at the top end, right? And I think it genuinely, I think there is a incredibly large material impact algorithmically. If you're watching, if say for example, 40,000 of Hassan's viewers or whatever are watching things at the same time in their own, even if it's just muted in another YouTube tab, that what that does in the YouTube algorithms is far greater than what's happening right now. That's factors of 10 more than what the current YouTubers are getting out of that React content currently. 40,000 views is more than what some people's videos get views ever, right, on YouTube. For example, there are plenty of videos that Hassan has reacted to where he could at least increase by 25-30% the viewership they currently have on YouTube. And that's a significant financial gain that they would get if people literally just clicked the link and then muted it and then went back to the Twitch tab. It's such low effort things that you could do to benefit somebody whose content you are using in lots of terms and freebooting in plenty of other cases as well. You could just literally do, and even if you're trying, as long as you're trying to put the effort in from an ethical perspective, I think that again, it's such low opportunity cost. Why would you not do it when it's at least going to lend some level of benefit to the people's content you're essentially using for your own benefit?
I mean, I would tell you, I wouldn't open up a second tab just because the streamer asked me. I mean, that's just me though. But I also think again, we've come back to this being larger streamers doing this. There is an equilibrium where there is now a material cost. I mean, if we're agreeing that larger streamers, which I am contentious on agreeing with that, have a greater harm, okay, well, where does the harm start? Okay, so if Destiny, who's like a 3K Andy, is doing it, but Lumi is also doing it, who's like, 500. I don't really look at her numbers or their numbers, my mistake. Okay, where is the harm begin? And do we
Again,
start?
I'm not gonna have a Loki's wager argument with you. For my own
I mean,
perspective,
I want to know. I mean,
I think Lumi should be doing that as well. I think Lumi's audience
okay.
is large enough, and they make a living off of their own audience, right? They pay all their bills with that thing, and I think they should at least try and give something back to the people whose content that they're watching, right?
Yeah,
Right.
and I think that like even
So,
if you are a one viewer or two viewer person, I don't think that means that you are free of all responsibility. I think that the same standards that we have applied of trying to make transformative content, trying to direct your audience towards it, I think that does apply to everyone, right? Point being though, I think the harm grows and grows as you're bigger because you're creating a one-stop shop for viewers that don't have to go to YouTube, they don't have to watch these videos, they can just join your stream and they're essentially getting a curated version of like the best videos of the day or whatever. They don't have to actually do any of that on their own. And so you're drawing eyes away from those platforms onto this convenient option. And I don't think that's necessarily fair, especially when these people are making, quite frankly, they're making millions off of rehashing other people's content.
I mean, I think
Just
these are nice
just a quick
things. Oh,
thing.
go ahead.
Just a quick thing for the sake of the mathematics here. Say, and I'm not agreeing with anyone, I am impartial, but say Hassan has 40,000 viewers and he asks his audience, for the sake of argument, to open the video he's watching in another tab. Say 0.5% of those viewers open it in another tab. Do you know how many people that would be? How many extra views?
It'd be like 400, 500 something.
There's
What?
200 extra views. If
Mhm.
0.5% of his audience open it in another tab. I think that's
I,
the point that MTG is making here.
I would
It's
have
that
no.
even
Yeah.
a tiny percentage in a big audience makes a difference.
I would have no issue with streamers doing that. I think that that'd be cool. Are they obligated to? I would argue no.
Yeah.
I know we were also like arguing on the basis of are they really big? Are they not really big? I think a basic level of etiquette is recognize the YouTuber that you're watching, post their link, make sure that your audience knows who this person is, what they're about, and why you're watching their video, right? Um, but as far as like ethics goes, we have to have a baseline standard of ethics for all streamers. If you expect large streamers to do that, you should also expect small streamers to do that, even if the impact is not going to be as big. It's like saying, well, stealing is wrong, right? And we can look at, we can parse out like, why people are stealing and, what makes it, what, I don't know.
Well, okay, so you mentioned stealing,
Yeah.
right? I think like the point I'm trying to make is like, let's say you're like a minimum wage worker and you steal some
Mhm.
like bread or something, not because you need it to survive.
Right.
There's probably a
Right.
difference in like a millionaire, you know what I mean?
But
I would
in
say they're both
general,
morally wrong, but
but
one person has a little bit more means and stuff like that.
but
you know?
in
I don't
general,
think
right?
stealing is necessarily wrong either, but I think that again you have to take the materials
yeah,
into account, right?
That's what I'm saying, right? But it's not a one-to-one comparison. But what I am saying is your baseline standard of ethics should be stealing is wrong. Now, if somebody's stealing out of necessity, obviously we can have that conversation. But there should be a baseline ethical standard for all streamers, and chatters. I'm looking at you, chat. But mostly streamers. So I think applying it in that regard and making that your main moral framework would be more what's the word I'm looking for? Um, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. It would
Yeah,
it would it would befit you to do that.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I think I hold all of them. It's just that larger streamers, first off, they know more than anyone else on the platform how hard it is to actually get people to go and sub and click on links and stuff like that. So they should be a
Right.
little bit more aware of how much influence they can. And also, they set kind of like a good standard for the rest of the space. One of the biggest problems with React content right now is that big streamers are pushing the lines of what is React content by doing things such as MasterChef, such as Naruto, such as watching all these videos. And what that actually does is it's not going to harm them because they're making hundreds of thousands of viewers. They get banned, they get a 3-day vacation, they come back doing the same shit with twice the view count, right? What it does is it harms all the small streamers actually who are trying to do transformative content. And when you start to see these really big streamers who are really pushing the lines of what transformative content is, I think what we're probably going to see is just a cross-platform ban of a lot of this kind of stuff, or significantly tighter rules. And that's why I put a little bit more onus on these big streamers to take actions, because they're not the ones who are going to get hurt by it in the long runs. They have the audience to survive. Probably going to be the smaller streamers who I think do serve a little bit more value out of reacting to content. They're the ones who are going to actually get punished by tighter restrictions.
Consistency was the word I was looking for.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and again, I hold them all to the same account. I just think that the larger ones have more influence, so they're easy. It's easier for me to kind of pick on them.
Right. So
and
you're gonna
change.
stick on them a little more about it.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna go down and be like, ah, dude, you're like a 2-viewer League of Legends. Like, what are you doing? Like reacting to this video? Like, it's like that's not really, I think, the point. Or there's not really as much value being
And
done
if the
there.
larger creators are going to adhere to a greater standard of etiquette than everybody else, if they all make the conscious decisions with which to do so, that culture will filter down to the rest of the kind of Twitch, just chatting audiences as well, right?
Right. I understand what you're saying.
I think these are nice things to do, but I don't think there's any kind of moral obligation to do it. It's just absurd. These are free videos on an open platform, and I think saying, "Hey guys, why don't you go follow these people? Go give them a sub. I really like their content. Here's the link." I think that's enough.
Right.
Yeah, but
It's
again,
like
that's not happening right now. And also, I would say you are morally obligated to do that if you are using their content. Otherwise, you are literally just rehashing, just stealing their content.
We're also
like
putting a
basic-
moral obligation on chatters to participate in this kind of like.
No, I don't put any moral obligation on them. I put it on the person
me-
using the content.
No,
because
you're asking them to
no,
open up
no.
content on another tab. You
Let
are
me ask
putting a
you
moral
this.
obligation
No,
on
no,
them.
holding the chatters to another level of
Hold on.
Sorry.
Hold on. Because that's not the argument Doubleshine was making. Graham, please
Yeah,
don't straw man arguments.
No, it's relevant though, isn't it?
No.
But
So
that's
I'm not
no.
asking,
You said that
I'm
was
not,
the argument he was making. That wasn't the
Oh
argument.
no,
he was
I'm
making.
just
Please don't straw
I'm
man.
adding that on. That
So
if we're
I don't
if we're
put-
asking people to do this, then we are putting like a moral onus on the viewers as
not
well.
moral, not at all. Chatters can do whatever the fuck they want. Most likely, what's going to happen is that if they have to do that, they might stop watching the stream. That's actually what would probably happen. And again, that's why these streams are essentially profiting off thousands, because they're able to get away with a one-stop shop, all the content that they want, without having to do any of the work. The streamer is literally just stealing the content and making that happen. Right?
And why would I ask them to do it?
Because you want to support the person, right?
I
want the
I want to
streamer
support
has
them
to
by
show.
sharing it with my audience.
Yeah, but as I said before, it doesn't seem like that's creating a ton of like draw to the actual platform. So it hasn't really, like, from what, at least from what I've seen, I don't see any examples of that happening. Or I know there obviously are some people who blew up as a result of people watching, but I don't think this is like a widespread thing that's going on.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything wrong with telling your chat, hey, can you hey guys, you'll be supporting this smaller creator if you open their link and watch the video, or just like let it play through while you're like making your orange juice or whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. I think in general, you could just literally by that metric, why don't you just like pull like a bunch of YouTube links together and say, hey, go, click on these YouTube creators' channels and just like run them through and like make these guys money. I mean, I don't know. I guess
The difference is that you're saying like, oh, pull up these links because you have a large audience that could bring it to them. I don't think that anyone has any obligation to make another person blow up. The difference is that if you're actually using that content to fill dead air, right? And that is what is happening on a lot of these streams. They're filling dead air with videos while they go cook or go to the bathroom and things like that. They could just be doing a loading screen.
Speaking of dead air, I have to go let my dog out, so you all can fill my dead air for me.
Okay.
Doggy.
Question. Here's I guess this would, I think, answer the crux of this entire discussion. What do these React streamers owe to these YouTube content creators? What do we owe them?
I mean, if you are essentially if you don't have any original content, like entire original content on your stream, right? Say for example, let's take a hypothetical streamer who literally never makes any of their own content that is specifically themselves, and all they do is just pull up other people's videos and react to them. There are plenty of people who used to do that on YouTube, and back in the day, people like Jinx or whatever, or people like no Life Shack or whatever. All these people who
Good
just
old Jinx.
all these people who literally just upload other people's content with their face in the corner and saying and laughing or whatever, right? Say for example, someone was doing a Twitch stream where they were doing that same thing, like in a kind of metaphorical sense. You essentially owe all these content creators your own career, because your career is entirely based off the fact that these other people's content exists. If it did not exist, you would not have a career that you do currently, right? I mean, obviously that's a specifically extreme and specific example there, right?
Sure, but you can make the argument that you wouldn't exist without them. But again, what specifically would you owe them at that point? Would you owe them
So
your entire like
Well,
platform if it came to that?
I don't think
so I don't think
that you should. Oh, go for it. Sorry. Fine.
yeah, so I don't think like they necessarily owe them anything, right? It's the idea
Okay.
that you are using someone's copyright product. Now, I don't know if you want to say that like copyright just shouldn't be a thing at all. I think that copyright is a really important thing. It's why we have patents in science. It's why music and movies seem to have gotten this, pretty under control, where like if you create a product, it is yours to market and sell. Again, YouTube is just this wild, wild west right now where we're kind of just saying like, okay, yeah, it's okay to use anyone's video because fuck it, it's free, and just ignoring the fact that a lot of those videos are making money for the people. They are directing them to links such as their Patreons or donation links that are making them money. When you make a video, it is your copyright. I think that if somebody else wants to use it, you have to either make it transformative, or at the very least, you have to create some relationship that is, a mutual connection between them.
I think a more productive method to go about this would be to say, YouTube, you need to pay your creators.
Yeah.
Put the onus on them. Make it so that they are the ones who are required to support the people who are, by any metric, doing way worse stuff than we are.
Well,
You know what I
to be
mean?
clear,
Like they
you-
are
you say
they
this,
are
but-
raking it in all the time, every year, day after day, 24/7 from these tiny, tiny content creators who are like drops in an enormous bucket that they just gulp. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
you
I think that a
see-
more productive way of going about this would be saying, YouTube, get your shit together, pay these people, because they are the ones that are making you money at the end of the day. You know what I mean?
But keep in mind that a lot of the way that they make money, at least from what I understand of YouTube videos, a lot of it comes from advertisements when they're watching the video. People are going to Twitch to watch things instead. You're kind of taking away people who could be on YouTube, who could be watching advertisements. Now, I'm not saying that one viewer that's on Twitch is specifically going to be watching that one video, but they could be watching any kind of video that could be giving some creator ad revenue. And that's like, so I think it's silly to say like, oh, just pay them more when we're actively taking viewers away from the YouTube platform. YouTube also pays their, I think they pay their content creators better than Twitch, if I'm not mistaken, also.
Almost certainly.
They do, but that's not hard.
That doesn't mean you're paying
I'm
them
just
enough, though.
saying, like, I think this whole idea of like, fuck YouTube, they're not paying enough, while we're like sitting here profiting like literally. The big ones are profiting
Sure.
millions off Twitch. I think it's a little silly and hypocritical.
But no, you make that the lesser evil, though. I mean, they're still both like gigantic corporations that are by no metric paying their creators enough. They're not, creators on that platform are not getting their what they're worth at all. I don't care if you got like 200 subscribers, which is literally more than I have right now, and you get like 50 views a video. If there's like a single advertisement on that video that 50 people see, you're adding value to the site that you're not seeing in revenue, because you can't even start making money until 1,000 subscribers, which is insane. It used to not be that way, but they recently changed that standard. So my thing is, sure, YouTube is a more lucrative option for content creators. That doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that it befits us, it behooves us to compare Twitch and YouTube and say, well, Twitch is actually the worst one. We could,
to clarify,
they could
this
both
is like
be better.
This is kind of like an entirely separate argument. We can talk about like what these platforms could do
You're
and
right.
could not do. But one thing I do want to kind of make clear is that like
the separate argument let me correct that real quick. The second
Sure.
argument would be Twitch versus YouTube. I think that it is a very on topic argument to say, why not put the onus on YouTube to support these people?
Right. I'm just saying that like that is a different argument to like talk about how they could pay more. I also don't really know if it's entirely relevant. I know you guys mentioned that like, oh, it would be really cool if these YouTube creators were making enough money, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think that even if you were making a healthy wage off your YouTube videos, I don't think that's still fair grounds for people to go ahead and use your content that you have worked hard to create a living for yourself with, and that they're going to make a living with simply by re-uploading it or playing it on a live format. I don't know if like that income actually matters.
But what? Go ahead, Gremlo. I can tell you're trying to.
Oh no,
Were you
if
gonna
you
say
want to go
something?
ahead and finish your point, I was just going to make a comparison to this conversation to one I've seen in the past. Go ahead, and you can say your piece.
I forget already. You can go ahead.
Okay. This conversation reminds me of one that was had about 10 years ago. I was big in the cosplay scene in my area. And there are people who will go to conventions and they'll like do videos and stuff and they'll post it on their YouTubes and, they'll get like 10,000 views on it and they'll, tag people in clips of it on their social media. And the same exact conversation happened during that. These videographers are stealing the audience of cosplayers who, otherwise would have more eyes on their content if it wasn't for this. Well, it's the exact same shit. They're not stealing content from you. They're not stealing any kind of viewership from you. Guess who's putting more eyes on your content whenever you're a 30,000 Andy, watching a YouTube video? It's the larger streamer, and it's the low level, like 30 viewer Andy who's putting eyes on it as well. I think
Well,
these things that you're
just to
asking
clarify,
are nice practices to do. I think asking people to open up another tab, I think is silly. It's a nice thing, but I think it is silly. Shouting out the channel, posting the links, asking people to go sub to them, that's all great. These are nice things to do. But again, we're putting an onus on the audience and the streamer to compensate people properly for for things that the company that they work for should be compensating them for. And this kind of conversation, unironically, builds animosity between content creators for things that are fine. These are fine things to do. Watching someone's video and saying, hey, go check this shit out. This is really dope. These are fine things to do. And I think we're over moralizing because unironically, I think it's envy.
Okay, so just to be
Legally
clear,
speaking,
you're not.
sorry, hang on, double shine. Legally speaking, they don't work for YouTube. Legally speaking, they are freelance.
Yeah, they're independent freelancers. It's fine.
Legally
They
speaking, they're
revenue.
Let's go. Healthcare. I'm down for that.
Just like two things. You've mentioned a couple times how like the things that we suggested are good, but there's no moral obligation. And then you keep saying there's things like, oh, it's envy, or like we just like don't care
Concern
about
trolling,
actual
yeah.
Twitch people. Yeah, things like that. I don't really think those are like fair arguments. I think if you're gonna make an argument that there is no moral obligation, you should actually like try to hit them. You mentioned cosplay, right? I think there's a completely difference between how a cosplayer might make their living or their
Patreon,
brand.
stuff like that.
So yeah, like
Hensley,
Patreon or Instagram, right? If you create a video of them, I think that's a little different than, for example, going to like a photo shoot and then taking photos of them on their photo shoot location that they plan on uploading.
Well, I bring
or
it up
even
because
worse, or sorry, even
these-
worse, re-uploading the videos that they took at their photo shoot. I think there's a difference in that kind of content. I'm totally fine with someone making new content that's original. I have no problem with that, even if it is stealing viewers. I just don't think that re-uploading the exact same content is fair usage.
Well, I bring it up because it harkens to the same exact kind of animus between two different types of content creators, and it's just completely absurd. We should be hyping it up. I mean, content creators who are getting a boost in viewership from these React streamers, they enjoy it. They love it. Andrew from Channel 5.
Well, let's be careful because they obviously don't, because JXC just made a have whole video about it, right? So
Yeah, a
it's not
handful of
we can't
people
just
got mad that
universally say,
Hassan
hey,
watched
it's
his
all
content.
cool.
Unless you
That's
can
the first to come up
quantify
in-
to us that you have some kind of genuine understanding of exactly how these people are being impacted by these React streams. Because as far as I'm concerned, we have the evidence on
Yeah.
our side showing that they don't have they have no significant impact at all. So you're gonna have to counter that with some actual hard evidence rather than just,
Yeah, if you give me
"Oh,
like
I saw
5
these
minutes, I can
YouTubers
pull up
got-
some
I saw
metrics.
these- I saw these YouTubers got reacted to, and they're also doing pretty well in the YouTube algorithm. So something must be happening. Like, if I will I'll absolutely spin on a dime if you can show me some evidence. But I've not seen any evidence at all.
Well,
Yeah, if you give me like
will
5 minutes,
happen.
I'll bring
I'm
up
sure
some
that,
metrics.
like, I'm sure that will happen from time to time, right? What I'm saying is that I don't think this is like a universal thing where every time you watch a video with no attention given, somehow
How
people are
so?
gonna magically find. Sorry, yes, are you asking me here?
No, I was asking someone in my chat something, but I was waiting
Sorry.
to interrupt.
No, my bad. So yeah, I think that on the subject of like fuck, I think I just lost my point. um, go on, someone else. Sorry, I'll come back to it.
I'm sorry about that.
No, you're totally
forgotten I
fine. You're
had
totally
just-
fine.
I'd forgotten I had just unmuted to interrupt and then addressed something my chat was saying.
You're totally fine. No worries.
My brain doesn't work. What I was going to say was, can we just be careful with prescribing feelings to people? Because we don't know how people feel about any fucking situation unless they explicitly say, and no group of people, whether they be YouTubers, Twitch streamers, leftists, right-wingers, trans people, cis people, hets,
Well-
eyes, whatever, are a fucking monolith.
Oh,
Are
gotcha.
you-
So
Go ahead.
I think I remember what I was going to mention. I think you kind of mentioned how like you think that JXC's main concern was that Hassan was watching their videos, and I think that's like a really oversimplification of what's happening and kind of a misunderstanding of what their concern even was. Hassan did this like really shitty thing where he was like, "Oh, you know what? Hey, fuck it. You have a problem? All right, I'm just never gonna watch your videos. Like, fuck you." I don't really like holding people hostage like that because you're basically saying like you either are on my terms or I'm just never ever gonna watch your content. When that was never the actual concern that was being brought up. In fact, I don't even know if JXC necessarily cares about their specific video.
I mean,
They were just bringing up
JXC
a
in their-
larger
No.
issue.
JXC
If
in
I
their
could-
video explicitly said, "I do not mind if you watch my videos, Hassan." In the very first response to Hassan that happened in the 6 months ago, or whatever, they explicitly said, "I don't mind if you watch my videos, just
Okay.
don't take the piss," right? And then he,
And that's fine. And that's fine. But I want to add to this: Hassan has the right to not watch Jay's content if Jay decides that Hassan's not doing it the way that Jay wants him to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
but
he
what I-
totally
let me-
maintains that right. You
Yeah,
can
let me-
call
let
it
me-
like bad behavior or whatever, but I don't have a problem with that personally.
No. Let me give you a similar example. Okay, let's say I go hang out with my friends, with like my girlfriend or something, and I always call her like a pet name or something, and then she says something like, "Oh, hey, like I don't like it when you call me pet names around your friends," and I'm like, "Oh, fuck it, all right, fine. I guess we're just never hanging out with my friends ever again." You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I have that right to not hang out with her. I'm not like a shitty person, but obviously I'm holding her hostage, right? I'm diverting what her actual criticism was to basically put
depends
her in
on
an
the-
ultimatum. No. I'm putting her in an ultimatum where she either has to just say, "Okay, fuck it, I guess I'll just deal with your terms," because obviously there is some value there from hanging out with my friends, or in this case, watching JXC's videos. But you're kind of just like you're literally just obstructing the entire actual
in your-
criticism that was made.
In your scenario, it's very silly to say that you're holding her hostage. What's being held hostage? The fact that he calls you any pet names at all? Like, maybe you can make that argument, but really, at the end of the day, it's like, look, I call it depends on the tone of voice, in my opinion, where it's like, obviously you're going to be an asshole if you're like, "Oh, well, I guess I just won't ever call you pet names."
But that
Yeah,
is what
that's
Hassan
asshole-ish.
did.
But if
He said, "Fine, I
on
won't
the
watch your
other hand,
videos."
huh?
That is what Hassan did. He said, "Okay, fine, I won't watch your videos ever
That's
again."
fine. I think that I
That's-
stand by fully the fact that
It's-
he was being kind of a dick.
I mean, it's
But
important to
but on the other
understand
hand, let
that-
me just
sorry.
finish my point if I may.
Go for it, sorry.
It's okay. On the other hand, if you were to say, like if your girlfriend would be like, "Hey, can you not call me pet names around your friends?" And then you're like, "Well, I'm sorry. It's just like really hard for me to like mentally, parse this out. I either call you pet names or I don't. So you kind of got to pick." Like, I don't see a problem with that. Nothing's being held hostage there. They're both ultimately the same outcome. The way that you handle it, the way that you go about it, though, is really more of a. It's really more of a problem of etiquette. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the point I'm making is that simply by doing this like all or nothing kind of thing, you're essentially like you're deflecting the criticism. You're not actually addressing the point that JXC was making of I don't like it when you use my content empty-handed. When you just use it as filler. I think this is a larger problem in the Twitch sphere. And when Hassan does this kind of thing, he is essentially he's just saying like he's throwing it away. He's saying it doesn't matter. Fuck it. If you don't want to be a part of it, then just like get the fuck out. And I don't think that's like a healthy thing to do.
I think we just wanted to make it clear that it's important just to and to demystify anything here. So the specific thing that happened was that Hassan Hassan thought that the original criticism was just don't watch my videos, when the original criticism was absolutely by all means watch my videos, but don't take the piss in those instances. So it sounded in the initial point like, well, if I can't use your content unethically, then I won't use it at all. But actually it was just him not taking the criticism for what it actually was, which is a weird miscommunication.
For my own Duda, am I remembering rightly that the criticism was, yeah, no, use my videos, just don't fucking play them to an empty chair?
Exactly. Essentially, it was just be transformative, actually shout
Oh,
me out and include the name of my channel, which wasn't even included in Hassan's reaction. Even cut off the end screen where Jay shouted out their links in the video
got it.
without even he didn't even say Jay's name at all for the entirety of the portion of time in which the video was playing. Right.
Got
Yeah.
it. So so to make sure that I have this correctly, so when reacting to someone's content, shout out their stuff, ask chat to open up a tab, and don't use the bathroom. Got it.
Oh my god,
Well,
that is not
hold
the
on,
argument.
I think we
Shut up.
Everyone
Shut the fuck up. Everyone shut the fuck up. Graham, that is the most bad faith interpretation you could have taken that. And I'm a little bit ashamed.
I want
It's
to
a little bit of
also
a
kind
straw
of I
man.
want to say what you're actually suggesting. You're saying that streamers, knowing that if they go to the bathroom while not playing a video, will drop viewership, or they have to do some other stuff. So instead of dropping viewership, they're just playing videos for free content. That is the argument that you are making.
Yeah, I do that every day, or I will be watching a video, say, "Hey, chat, I'll be right back," and go and pee.
So
I think-
just to be clear, you are saying that it's totally fine. Instead of dropping viewers, you're just going to farm free content to continue it. Whereas you can just put up a loading screen or pause it.
Just for clarity, what I do in this situation is I hold it until my normal break time. I then play memes that everyone in my chat has already seen, goes and watches on their own because they're musical memes and they're things you want to rehear. And it is a playlist that I have shared with everyone in my chat more than once. Like, there are things you can do to mitigate this, is like the point, I think.
Listen,
And just being like, no one is going to do these things, it's just being fucking lazy.
You can mitigate it, and that's what my issue is, that they don't have to, because they can just play these videos, keep their viewership up. Remember, nobody is forcing Hassan to stream 10, 11 hours a day. He is choosing to do so because he makes a lot of money from it. If he
Because
needs to go
he enjoys doing it, man. People enjoy doing this.
No, come on. You can't say that. You can't say that that's the only reason why he streams 10 hours. He streams a
Yeah,
lot
he
because
makes
he makes
money
a
and he
lot of
enjoys
money
doing
from
it. Like, what the fuck? It's
Okay, so let
literally
me-
is just concern trolling. I swear to God.
Okay, let me ask, if he enjoyed doing it, why doesn't he just stream, take a break to go get food, and then come back and stream again? Why doesn't he do that?
Because the viewership would drop off. Why would he stream to half the audience?
Exactly. So you are literally making the argument that his
Yeah.
viewership is reliant on him hijacking content from YouTube
Listen.
videos.
No,
I
his
don't-
viewership is relying on him being live for 10 to 12 hours. Like,
Right,
why
so-
would
Exactly. but
I
he can
stream to
only-
like
he can-
30 people? Why
can
would
only
I,
be
if I have
live.
to go shit, take a break for 20 minutes and then come back and I'm now streaming to 9? Why would I do that? Why would I fuck my metrics up like that?
Because
think-
if you didn't have those videos, your metrics would go down. You are hijacking their content to keep your metrics up.
Bruh,
It is the
It's
only
going
reason
to the
why you can go
bathroom.
to bathroom for 20 minutes.
if we want to talk about
Hang on,
like
hang on,
ethical
hang on.
exploitation, now we're
Hang
talking about
on.
exploiting people
Hang
for
on,
their
please.
content.
Hang on, please. Thank you. Graham, I think, as, pointing out when I think people are correct and being, good faith or bad faith and what have you, I think actually Graham has a good point here. One of the biggest problems with viewers and viewer consistency is A, the kind of content you're covering, frankly, and B, consistency and constants, right? No dickhead is going to come and watch a 2-hour stream, then wait while you go offline for 20 minutes to go take a shit, and then come back when you come back online. That's not going to happen. Now, like I say, there are things you can do to mitigate that without necessarily stealing particularly the content of small independent YouTubers. I have a problem with the bigger YouTubers less so, because most people go and watch those on their own time anyway. But particularly small independent YouTubers, without stealing their shit, I think there are ways to get around that. Sorry, I had to burp.
I also I don't think it's fair to say that if you can't get around that with your own creativity or your own content, that you deserve those.
But you deserve what? I'm
guess-
sorry, you were a little low on that last part.
Oh, sorry. So I don't think that it's fair to say that if you can't mitigate it by doing your own content, whether that be playing your own individual content, a loading screen, Jay actually suggested that you could bring on someone else to entertain the chat. If you can't find a way to mitigate the viewership drop from going to poop for 20 minutes, then you don't deserve those viewers. I'm sorry.
But that viewership there, the viewership that you're
Can you-
maintaining there
okay,
is literally only existent because of the content that you're freeboosting at that point.
Exactly.
It's
And I would
Here's-
also
because you're
state,
there
back to a
watching it
previous,
with them.
No,
as
you're not. We're literally talking about someone leaving for 20 minutes. I'm being very clear here that the only reason those viewers are there is because you are hijacking content. Otherwise, they would have left. We already
Dude,
agreed to this.
hijacking content. What is this
Do you want me to
emotionally
call it
loaded language that we're
Do you want me to
using?
call it
Listen.
stealing?
Oh my
I don't
god,
like.
Graham,
I don't
don't
know.
sound like Destiny. Don't use a
I can
Destiny
call
line
it.
for
It
fuck's sake.
is.
No,
Listen,
It
I'm
is.
gonna
It's
I'm gonna be the big
literally
brain.
Sorry.
control.
What word would you like me to use? Using? I can say using or stealing. I don't know. Like,
Using someone else's content.
Okay.
You are watching it with your audience.
but
the
you're
th-
not.
the-
You're
Hijacking-
leaving for
using the
this.
content.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
for-
Right,
Unless
everyone
you
shut the fuck up. Everyone shut the fuck up. Everyone shut the fuck up. Thank you very much. I think based on, dictionaries and basic definitions of words, I actually think hijacking is a reasonable word to use in this situation.
I said freebooting because it was when I
Freebooting, yeah.
hijacking.
Yeah,
I think is
freebooting
absolutely
works.
perfectly reasonable. as
I'd
well.
argue against that.
And
I'll say. I'm sorry. I'll use stealing. Okay. How about that?
but the thing
But
is that you can tell there is a material difference there between what you would or would not have did that content not exist, right? If we're all leftists, we're all materialists here. We understand how what material impact is, right? We don't have to make this-
My argument is that it's not hijacking or stealing if there's nothing of value being lost. You know what I mean? I just don't see the value being lost. Now, that being said, here's where I'm going to come from as far as the bathroom thing goes. I personally think that it is bad form to leave a video on while you go to the bathroom without so much as crediting the person who even made the video. Okay, I think that's bad form unless there is a prior agreement, a prior understanding that that's okay to do, right? I don't know how you would go about like stopping them from doing that. So, and this is honestly my perspective. Like, I really don't know. So, if you could, just explain that or like your perspective on that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, it's really difficult to stop people doing it. It's really difficult to create hard and fast rules. And I don't want hard and fast rules to be put in place. I don't think that any of us really want, big tech and people who control the platforms like Twitch and YouTube being the sole arbiters of what is or isn't going to be something that we allow that's allowed on the platform, right? And at the end of the day, I don't think it's in the grand scheme of things something that's really going to impact people in a huge way. But I think that when the opportunity cost is so low, this is just things that people just should be doing. And may I make a point as well is that if you are freebooting people's content, but literally everyone in your stream, I'm not saying they would be, but in the hypothetical situation where they did have the video open in another tab or whatever, if it was muted, right? Even if you did walk away and go to the toilet for 20 minutes, your arse is covered because then nothing of value has been lost, and everything, whoever you were using as filler content to go to the bathroom with has literally gained everything that they would do if all of your chat was watching it in their own time, regardless. Do you see why I think this is something that takes so little effort for you to do on the part of a streamer? Is something that we should be doing if we're doing React content.
Right, and again, from I guess I'm just going to keep saying like the etiquette perspective. I agree with you. I think that we should be doing that. I guess what if you were the arbiter of Twitch? Like, would you enforce this in any way, or do you think that it should just be an etiquette consideration? Like being polite. You know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah,
Twitch is sort of cracking down, right? They are like hitting people who are violating it to the egregious levels of things.
Right,
like,
but I'm asking,
Naruto
what would
and
you
stuff.
do?
Yeah. And so what I would say is when you talked about how this whole idea of like we don't want tight legislation, right? I agree, we don't. And that's why I'm very critical about setting up a good community and like a healthy connection now, because I really do think that what is going to happen is that Twitch is not going to take the liability down the line. And what they're going to do is I wouldn't be surprised if they just start banning this kind of stuff, right? They just start cross-platform banning this content. We saw it with music, right? I'm sure you guys all are aware that it's pretty damn hard to play music on your Twitch stream. You'll get muted, right? And I think it was they've like made it a little bit lighter now, but it used to be even more strict. And I don't want that. I really don't. I want there to be good connections that are being built from the ground up while it is still this pioneer phase. Else, I think that we're just going to be losing this access to React content, and they're just going to take the far safer approach.
I think this is a really good segue to move into the next bit I wanted to touch on with this. What do we do if, because of the irresponsible use of other content, whether that's the React meta of things like Naruto and what have you, or the misuse of YouTube videos that get DMCA claimed, right? What happens if they bring in like a content ID system like to Twitch like they did with YouTube? Because that content ID system fucked a lot of fucking creators.
When you say irresponsible, do you just mean like in terms of TOS?
Irresponsible in air quotes, whether that's things like just playing and reacting to Avatar like Pokemon did, or like not transforming a YouTube video enough based on
Okay.
whatever arbitrary fucking definition you have, right?
Right.
What
Okay.
happens if Twitch then end up bringing in something like YouTube's content ID system, like MatPat argued for?
Ugh.
Well, first
I
of all,
think-
fuck MatPat.
I mean, yeah, MatPat is an achwi. I can
Yeah.
concur. Yes.
but I mean, I think
Yeah.
that so with the content ID system that MatPat was arguing for, I didn't watch his particular piece of commentary on this, so I don't know. But it was his thing of saying that in those cases of someone getting content ID'd on their Twitch stream, ad revenue that would have been played to that person's audience would then go to the original creator on YouTube or whatever, or what was he trying to advocate for? I don't know.
I have no idea. I haven't seen the video all the way through. I've only heard of it.
The
That it was a thing.
The moment
Um,
content ID on YouTube just puts all any ad revenue or YouTube premium revenue that you get on your YouTube video upload to the original creator, right? Using the current content.
or
ID
whoever
system.
copyrights it, or
Or
whoever
whoever copyrights
copyright
it.
claims it, because some
Yeah,
people do that as scams.
Yeah, quite. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like one thing again when it comes to like the actual legality of it, none of us are DMCA lawyers, and there's very little legal precedent. So I do think that if it does ever come down, it's going to be far more on the strict end as opposed to this like loose, okay, you can do whatever you want with the content, like what we have now. I mean, worst case scenario, we get a shitty little library on YouTube of like, oh, these are DMCA free videos that you can watch on stream, and God, that would be awful. I'm sure nobody would want that. What I think, what I want to kind of stress is I really hope that we can create kind of a ecosystem where YouTubers are saying like, hey, I'm totally fine with Twitch streamers watching this video. Just like, please credit me with like this link, just like how music does. And then on the other hand, we can have these like larger Twitch streamers, especially who are reaching out and being like, hey, I want to use your video. Is it okay if we do it? Is it okay if like other Twitch streamers use it? I think that would be like really, really cool, really healthy, and it would avoid any like serious legislation coming down the line.
I have heard the argument made for YouTubers to put like a watermark in like the corner of their video that's like says like reactable or something like that.
Yeah,
Like that
that'd be
seems like a
awesome.
reasonable thing, at least on the content creator end, that can be done so that things are we can see this is
Wait.
React available.
So, asking this for clarification, does that mean that you think that people who have their shit stolen should have the onus put upon them to do something to try and prevent
Listen,
that?
I,
If it's
as
like
the
digital?
moderator, I feel like saying like having your shit stolen is a little bit lopsided, don't you?
This is a clarifying question on digital content generally.
Okay, then clarify the question in a less lopsided way.
How is it
Stolen isn't a
lopsided?
good
No,
word. We
hang
have to
on,
use
hang on, hang on,
credit
hang on, hang on.
used.
Shut up, hang on, right? I'm not talking specifically about YouTube videos, right? I'm talking about any digital content at all of any kind, right? Should the onus be on the creator of whatever the fuck that is to have to prevent their shit from being used without their permission, stolen, hijacked, freebooted, whatever the fuck word you want to use?
I think it's a nice thing to do, but I don't think it's required.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, I think that like there's always going to be a share of responsibility. Right now, I think it leans way too hard on YouTubers, where we're just like, oh yeah, if they have a problem, just like message every Twitch streamer. Which I think JX even pointed out how incredibly difficult it was to reach Hassan in the first place. There's no links or direct emails that you can even get to him. So I would like to see more of that responsibility shifted to at least closer to the middle. And just like. No, I know Twitch streamers aren't for it because they don't have to right now. They literally can just do nothing and be fine. But I think it's on all of us to sort of encourage that community where there is more responsibility being upheld by Twitch streamers.
I think if people are actually going to go by the letter of the law and you wanted to actually define what is or isn't fair use based on what we currently have for what's being used as React content, a vast majority of it would not count as fair use because one of the again, this is a law argument I'm not going to make again because I don't want it to be I don't want us to get completely sidetracked on what is or isn't legal. But one of the tenets of fair use is that you can only use as much of the content as you feel is necessary to make whatever point it would be you were going to make. And I don't think including the entirety of someone's other piece of work to then use as your React content would necessarily, in the vast majority of cases, actually hit that specific rule with regards to fair use. That's where a lot of issues would come in if there was some kind of legal crackdown with regards to that. Now I know the Tabernacle, and was it Dark Viper who did that big fucking yes, it was Dark Viper AU who did the whole video where he did a big manifesto where he called all React, he compared all React streamers to like sexual abusers.
Pedophiles. Yeah.
Yeah, it was mad shit. It was awful. But what the Tabernacle did after he was discussing what was happening with this whole Reactgate discussion is that he was of the opinion that because no Reactgate content, no reaction content could, for the entirety of the medium, could theoretically be classified as fair use, that the way you would actually be safe in those regards is by re-watching all the content, finding the bits and pieces you think are worth commenting on or responding to, then using the timestamps in your Twitch stream. Now, I don't agree. I don't think that is something that we should ever have to do to make our things fair use without under the risk of being caught up under Content ID or under DMCA, etc., etc. But I think that taking steps to mitigate things that could lead us in that direction are things we should be doing.
And then just to add, also another big tenet of fair use is not only this idea of like you only need to use what is necessary, but also the amount and the substantiality of the content that you're using is really, really important. I think it's easy to see how maybe if you uploaded like a 5-minute segment of a movie with some criteria or some commentary over it, that's probably closer to fair use and probably more acceptable. Whereas if you uploaded an entire movie, it's going to be way harder to justify that what you're doing is transformative.
Yeah, because
And when it comes to like live stuff, it's almost always you're watching entire chunks, right? Most people aren't like finding individual clips and stuff like that, and I don't want that either. I think the watching the entire thing and reacting to it is totally fine. It's really awesome, but there just has to be that level of transformativity put into it so that is considered acceptable.
Yeah, so for example, just to make clear, for example, every frame of pause, that's smallest thing that he does with the JX and a bunch of that kind of stuff. The reason why they get away with uploading entire movies to YouTube is literally because of the name. Every frame of pause, they create something transformative out of literally every possible sequence in the movies that they are reacting to. So it is then taken as fair use because they are using the entirety of the content with which to make substantial critiques of everything involved. But that's the level they have to go. Create 8-hour pieces of content to justify using an hour and a half piece of content or a 2-hour piece of content, right? That's the level to which they have to be transformative to get away under DMCA from uploading essentially an entire movie to YouTube.
The same thing with like playing songs and breaking down the lyrics. You also see that like if you can use entire forms of content. It just has the bar is way higher for that.
I mean, for the sake of this conversation, can we at least not pretend that copyright law is not bollocks? Because that's what it feels like we're pretending it's not bollocks, and it is bollocks.
Yeah, I
yeah, sorry. Just to be clear, when I'm not trying to actually talk about the law because again, it's really, really hard. Anyone who claims that they know what is and isn't DMCA, they're full of shit. There's very, very like little actual like legal
It's all
precedent.
fucking
Stuff
arbitrary.
Like that. Exactly right. But what I'm saying is that like I'm just kind of using sort of like the metrics that they do look at when they're determining if something is fair use, because I do actually agree with the metrics more or less. It's just like the actual determination process that is sort of up in the air, and we don't really have a lot to go off of.
Yeah, because we can use it as some kind of foundation with which we can extrapolate from to make additional prescriptions about what we think of as transformative. Because I think that's what the fair use doctrine is trying to, in its own way, trying to prescribe. Obviously, we think that that's bollocks, which I agree with. But I think that using that as a basis for how we decide what is or is not transformative, how we extrapolate from that, I think is reasonable.
Okay, Double Shine and MTG, shut the fuck up for a minute. Beanie Team, do you have anything you want to throw in on this part of the conversation?
Oh, we are both wearing beanies.
Yeah, that's why I have dubbed you Beanie Team.
I said Beanie Teen. And I'm like, wait.
I think it's strange that we can in one breath say that copyright is bullshit, and in the other say that React Andy content is hijacking and theft and morally repugnant. Not to put the last part in your mouth, but that's just me,
Just
whatever.
to be clear, I never said copyright is bullshit. Copyright law is a little up in the air, but copyright itself, that concept is, I would consider, a very fundamental
Okay,
thing.
we're splitting hairs a little bit, but yeah, I
No, no,
understand
no,
what
there's
I
a very
understand what you're saying,
big
though.
difference
I
there.
do.
In order,
But it's just
Mhm.
strange. Like, okay, so copyright law, BS, React Andy, also like really bad. I don't know. A lot of this just does feel like, because the reality is you're probably, and this is just me throwing whatever out there, going to get better React Andy content from a larger streamer because they have a larger audience to, engage with, than you are going to get from a smaller streamer. Now, that's not to say that smaller streamers can't do really good React content. I think 4 of them are currently in here. Well, 3, not including myself. It's just very strange because the better objectively content React content is going to be from larger streamers, I think, than it is from smaller streamers. So the harm is actually done on the larger streamers because it's taking away more, but at the same time it's more transformative because it's a larger streamer. I don't know. It just seems like a lot of concern trolling. It seems like people are mad because people aren't reacting hard enough. I think this conversation again is largely meaningless. I think the things that you guys are suggesting are probably good, but
Wait, can I ask a
to
quick question? Because you talked about
sure,
React harder. Do you think that there's a level of no reaction that would be unsatisfactory?
sure, I would be bored, but I would still be
No,
okay
no, no,
with
no.
it.
I'm saying that. Okay, so like for example, if somebody was like sleeping, just sleeping, they didn't even have their webcam on, they were just playing a video. You think that would be totally fine?
Oh, I think that you should probably be conscious for your React Andy content. Yeah, I think that's a line I would accept.
Okay. I mean, as long as you have some line, because
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and like I said
if
earlier, like
simply
if someone
being
wants to
conscious is
watch,
enough, then
yeah,
yeah, I mean,
like
I
look,
don't know what
like
to
I said
tell you.
earlier, if you're wanting to watch like the full 2021 Dune, I think that's probably not good. You're probably going to draw some eyes onto this platform that we don't want. It, like in the case of people watching full episodes of anime that are just like flipped. Like I don't think that's good. Again, it's bringing the wrong type of people to this platform, and by wrong type of people, I mean people who are going to start copywriting. But if it's on YouTube, fuck it. It's
Just to be
free.
clear, the difference is people who have like the agency to actually make stuff versus like YouTube people who like fuck them. They're just small YouTubers. They're not going
The
to
thing
actually
is,
do anything. Therefore,
I'm
it's
of the,
right.
I'm of the opinion that
Hold on,
the
hold on,
reason
hold on. Sorry, MTD. For the sake of consistency, because I told the other side off for this earlier, Double Shine, don't be bad faith, dude. Come on.
I'm just curious.
No,
I just
no,
don't know what
it's
the
a fine
difference there
question.
is.
Like
No,
you were doing
it's a
really
fine
well,
question.
and then the end part of the question was really fucking bad faith, my dude.
No, it's a fine question. Like, look, like I said earlier, it's on YouTube. If these people want like their content to be unreachable to React streamers, put it on Patreon and like limit what you put on your YouTube. Like it's fine if you want to put like the good shit on the Patreon. I think that's totally cool.
But people can still
Do you
re-upload
think?
your Patreon content. But even then, like my point is the opposite. I think that if it were not for the dangers to the platform of watching anime and watching movies on your Twitch stream, it wasn't for the danger to the platform, if that didn't exist, right? Then I actually would think that I'd be far more ethical, as far as I'm concerned, than watching YouTube content of existing creators, because they at least have a revenue share with what happens with the ad revenue that's coming off YouTube and that on that platform. They at least have they get some kind of actual material gain from people engaging with their content. All of the camera crews and light crews and script writers and all of these people who went into creating anime or went into creating the movies and such, people are watching on Twitch, they've been paid once. All of the additional profit and revenue is just going to go upstream to whichever people own the copyright, whether it's Viacom or whatever. And as far as I'm concerned, I can give two shits, right? That's not the people I actually care about in this case. But when you're rebooting someone else's content that's come from YouTube, who were those views going to them on YouTube, they would at least be gaining something from the interaction, because their livelihood is essentially based on interactions with their content, rather than something like Viacom, where the people who actually get the people who are doing the work, the people who are getting paid, who are then having their surplus value extracted, are the ones who don't really. There isn't any material additional gain they get from people interacting with their content more on a kind of direct level, right? Do you see what I mean?
Just so I can make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. If the anime watchers weren't a thing, you wouldn't have as much as a problem with YouTube Reacts? Is that what we're saying?
No, but I'm saying that the anime reactors aren't as bad as people who are YouTube reacting from an ethical perspective, on the assumption that they weren't putting the Twitch platform under duress. Because obviously, if people are continually watching MasterChef or watching anime or watching movies, that puts our whole platform under scrutiny, and that's where
I
the harm comes from. That, but the actual harm to the original creators is far worse when it's YouTube than what it would be if it was anime.
Yeah, I think
I
what
mean,
MTG is saying is that providing it wasn't putting Twitch at risk and streamers at risk of being DMCA stricken, she would be fine with the reaction to anime or anything made by big corporations, because the only people getting paid from those watches at that point are our rich executives.
it seems that I think you've mixed up like where the actual harm is, because the anime, and I don't think there's really any harm in the MasterChef. I don't think Gordon Ramsay or Fox Broadcasting really cares. But like the the Viacom stuff, that poses much more harm to the platform because those
No,
people
you've
actually have the
misunderstood the point.
power.
You've misunderstood the point she made. The point she made is providing it did not pose harm to the platform. That was
Right.
the proviso.
Right,
Yes.
Providing it didn't pose harm to the
right.
platform, and the only people that were being affected was the executives of those corporations, morally, there wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, correct. Because it's all about, as far as I'm concerned, it's all about where the labor comes from, right? It's all about who is then benefiting off the additional value provided by the labor of the original content creators. Because as I mentioned before, the all of the people who go into creating a piece of anime get paid once for their labor. They get paid a wage with which to go and create a piece of content that then gets owned by a larger corporation that then gets distributed to watch on the platform. Whereas YouTube creators are partners of YouTube. They upload their content and then they get a revenue share about the ad revenue, which they're not having gone their way because someone else is freebooting off their content, right? That's why I think that is more morally questionable than watching a piece of copyrighted media made by some.
So
Okay.
I'm
Do you want to
I
take
have a
that?
biology degree, right? Uh, and in biology, there's this concept called symbiosis. And I don't know if you guys remember anything about that. There's three forms of it. There's mutualism, commensalism, and parasitism, right? At worst, I see taking this content as commensalism, which means one person is benefiting while the other's unaffected, right? You guys are posing this as parasitism, and I just don't see where, again, I just don't see where anything is being lost. In order for this to actually be a parasitic relationship, something to the original content creator must be lost. And sometimes you guys argue that it's viewership. I would tend to disagree. Now, another point that I think somebody brought up earlier is that, well, because there are content React Andes, right? People are going to go watch them instead. Well, then clearly these React Andes are providing something that the other YouTube content creators are not. The ultimate solution by that logic to say, oh, well, because there are React Andes, is to just say, let's just strike all React Andes. Therefore, people are forced to go watch the original video. And in my opinion, I don't like that. Everybody has a different mode of the way that they want to watch videos. And I think taking that away, that choice is it's silly. Why would we do that? Why would we limit ourselves like that?
So I just want to address this. I do think that there is value created for both parties. Um, there's obviously going to be, I think, some things that are lost in that exchange, but I do think both parties serve to benefit. That's why YouTubers like JXC are totally fine for the most part with having other people watch their stuff, right? I'm not putting this as parasitism. I'm not even saying it's communalism. I think that they both have stuff to benefit. It's just that with the idea of copyright, I think you own your property, you have the ability to do with it. And I think it's okay to ask people to be a little bit more respective of your works, even if it does serve to benefit you. Just because
No,
just because you stand to benefit
Yeah.
does not mean that you necessarily have no reason to say like, okay, just be like, oh yeah, I'm getting like a benefit from this, therefore I need to just shut up and take it.
this is a comparison I've been wanting to make for a while. let's say that you go out in public and you are a stinky, right? You are a stinky person and you go around people and you happen to be stinky, right? Does that mean that you are going to say it's morally wrong for that person to be stinky? You know, should we like legislate against that? Should we tell them that they don't have a right to be stinky in public? I personally don't think so. It's going to make people not want to be around them as much, but you know, that's ultimately going to be like you know, something that they personally, you know, take a hit from. Um I think that legislating around that or, you know, building some kind of morality around that would not benefit anybody. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a React Andy and all you're just sitting there with a deadpan stare, watching somebody else's content and not crediting them. I mean, if it's exactly the same as going to watch the original YouTube video, I would venture a guess that people would just say, "This is stupid. I'm going to go watch the original YouTube video." You know what I
But
mean?
that's the problem. They're not going to watch the original YouTube video, even though functionally it is the same thing, because they don't have to go and search for it. They're getting all of their content curated. That is the value provided, the curation of content.
So
I just
you're
don't think that that
saying,
satisfies a transformative use of copyright content.
but the argument that you're making then is that the Twitch streamer is feeding the content to them. Is that not in itself some kind
Uh,
of like
Absolutely.
valuable action?
That absolutely is a value, right? Again, if there
Okay.
was no value, they wouldn't be watching it, right? I'm just saying
Right.
that I don't think that the value they provide satisfies some idea of new or transformative content. You're basically just using other people's content to like bring it in a collective place where people don't have to go and search for it on their own.
And that's, you know, I understand that, but again, I just don't see what's being taken away from the original content creator.
Once again, the fact that they don't have to go and find that content on their own. They have it all on Twitch. They can watch their favorite videos. There's someone who's going to find them
But
all
what
the
are
best
the
stuff.
odds, the realistic odds that you think somebody would go and seek that out if it
Well,
were
they
not
wouldn't.
available to them
Again,
on
they wouldn't.
Twitch?
They might not find that exact specific video, right? But let's say I really like watching Hassan because I like the videos that he watches, right? If Hassan didn't exist on the platform along with all the other React streamers, I might probably go watch some videos on YouTube instead, right? Maybe I won't watch Hassan talk about like politics or something. Okay, sorry. But yeah, that's the idea, right? You're getting all of your content curated in one location. You don't have to actually go and search for that.
It's not just because I mean, well, I was going to make a point, and I completely forgot how I was going to word it. I mean, it's just like there's only that's the point. There's only a finite amount of time, right? There's only a finite amount of time that people are going to spend watching, you know, video content, whether it be streamed or whether it be pre-prepared. That is a limited amount of time people have in their day outside of everything else, and they're going to be watching something if they've got nothing else to do. They're going to be in the position where it's a Twitch stream. And if your specific thing that you're going to watch is specific because it's been curated by somebody else, then that's not because of the specific nature of the that's not because of the merit of the content that's being produced in the original. It's being directed there by someone who you're allowing to do that for you. Where you could otherwise be watching something, you know, which is going to have the material gain for the original content creator that you're going to engage with due to some other means, and then they're not. Then in which case the person who you're reacting to isn't getting anything.
And just as another example of like cross-platform stuff, this time, you see a lot of YouTube videos that are like TikTok compilations, right? You used to have the Vine compilation too, right? I think that these also are, I would say, like pretty bad. Just because, like, again, it is curating content. It is awesome. I fucking love it because I hate browsing through TikTok. I hate that app. But that's the problem. Because I get access to this curated content, I don't have to spend time on TikTok scrolling through stuff, and I'm kind of like I'm not giving views to actual TikTok creators. Instead, it's all going to this one YouTube person who is just funneling it all to me in this like one
But
collective
they're
format.
still doing a job in that manner. So like I know that
Sure.
you're saying that they're taking views away from other people, but but by you know they are still provide like you've agreed that they're providing value, right? So
Absolutely. But the value
my
that they're
point
providing
is
is
I wouldn't want to
largely
take that
on the
away.
copyright of someone else. You know?
Right, but I don't think you would want to take that away either. I know what you
Sure.
guys' point is that we should somehow find a way to credit or, you know, compensate or something to the original creator. I'm trying to figure out a streamlined way to do that. You know what I mean? Like what is the best solution to that?
Yeah,
And
so Daily Dose of Internet. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, right? He does
Love that.
little YouTube
yeah.
highlight reels. He has every single link, just bam, 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 every single one. I don't know how much he actually does to go and talk to them, but he has those links, and he also does a little bit of commentary. Not always. I still think that some of the times where he just plays a video with no commentary is still kind of bad. but I think that that's at least closer to what I would consider fair use.
What kind of content do you guys do?
I do gaming.
That's
Okay.
a YouTube, British political content.
Okay. So I mean, you've probably been covering the like Ukraine stuff over the last couple days.
I have not been covering the Ukraine stuff because I know shit all about geopolitics, and anything that I do cover would just be completely. I would just be completely. I'm not in the position with which to comment on it. I've done like a little bit about like the way in which liberal media prioritizes, conflict affects white people over conflict affects brown people, but that's because I understand racism. I don't know, or at least more than I understand geopolitics.
Sure.
Yeah, poor
So-
MTG has no idea how even the fucking EU works. So
I mean, I probably know more
does?
than David Davis did. To be fair, during the negotiations with Barnier, was it?
David Davis is a piece of shit anyway. I understand how the EU works, Graham. The answer is me. I do. I'm the nerd here.
Well, that's why you're a mod in my chat. So
Okay,
the reason I
want-
ask is because
sorry,
over the
sweetheart,
last couple days, I've
5
been
minutes and then closing statements, okay?
Okay. So just the reason I ask is because I've been, looking at what's going on in Ukraine over the last couple days, and a lot of it I'm learning myself. So I don't have a whole lot to say over it. Do I owe Vice or DW News some kind of credit for that?
I would say, like, for example, if you're just sitting there with like their stream playing, I think you probably should have some like you should be making some effort to send it to them. I don't really think that saying like, oh well, I'm just learning, I don't know anything. It's like, okay, well then you shouldn't be using that as your content. You know what I mean? That's not your content that you're making if you're just restreaming someone else.
Got it. Okay.
I do think that political
transformative.
commentary, political commentary is often like there's a lot more going on there than some entertainment stuff, because I think the purpose of political commentary is often different than the actual like stuff that's being said. Obviously, if they're giving the facts of the situation and you're trying to talk about what is going on or like what the future could be, I think that is closer. But I still think that if you just had like, and not to call out, if you just were playing League of Legends with some like Ukraine stream at the top, I don't know if I would say that that's like fair.
Do you feel like you create transformative content when you play a game?
So yeah, with gaming it's a little bit different, right? Because when you are playing games, often there's a little like you're selling the gameplay itself, which is kind of unique, right? So for example, League of Legends, let's say we have the best player in the world, Faker, right? People like to watch him not because he's playing League of Legends, but because he is the best. They're seeing the absolute best player. It's no different than, for example, watching a sports player. Also, on the concept of gaming, this is actually not completely fair use either. If you guys know Persona 5, it's a very story-driven game. And Atlas specifically said, hey guys, we have very strict guidelines of what you can make YouTube videos and you can stream on. And they put a specific point in the game saying, listen, after this point, do not stream it or your ass is gone. Because it is essentially spoilers for a heavily story-driven game that they don't want people to simply be able to watch and ruin that experience that would otherwise have led people to go and play the game.
I actually disagree with Persona 5's take on this, for what it's worth, before we hand over. I actually disagree, and I think that, the act of playing the game is not something that's being taken from the original creators, right? So when you play a game on stream, that's not someone watching you. That's not a replacement directly for that person going and playing the game themselves.
Right.
The act of
And
playing the
I
game
think
is
that depends
specific
heavily on which
for
game
the
it is.
YouTube for the YouTube
if the game is
content,
garbage and people see like that it's buggy as shit vis-a-vis Cyberpunk, well they go, oh, well I'm definitely not playing that shit.
So
Yeah.
one of Persona 5's YouTube guidelines was like, hey, you can literally show all the gameplay you want. Don't feature cutscenes in your videos. That's all they ask, because that
that's a
is
crazy
important
ask.
story stuff that's like not really fair to watch. I think that, for example, if you guys ever know what light novels are, I think if light novels ever got more popular, I think I would also not be surprised if those started banning usage, because you're literally just like running down a story selection.
Just for the sake of accuracy here, most of the people who found out Cyberpunk was buggy did so via early access reviews, not Let's Plays.
Okay, real quick. I know we're running out of time, so I want to pose a point real quick. I think that it would be a more accurate statement to say that we are stealing their content if they did not get their money from ad revenues and from YouTube. if they got their money directly from viewers, like the viewers had to pay a minimum amount, or like if everybody had to pay for YouTube Red, then yes, I would argue that you are in fact stealing their content. You're taking money away from them. But in reality, they're getting money from the advertisers themselves. So again, at the end of the day, I think the best option here is to restructure how they're being paid and make sure that YouTube is the ones compensating them for their work. You know what I mean?
Well, would you want YouTube to be like locked behind like a $1 paywall to watch the video, and then it's
I'm not saying I
suddenly
want that. I'm saying that if that were the case, then I would call it stealing. But I just don't see I don't see the stealing bit. I see, like, again, it's like commensalism to me. You know what I mean? I don't think that, it's just not comparable to like actually physically stealing something.
Like someone, posting my Instagram post on their story and then putting a fire on their Instagram story. I don't consider them stealing my post.
I mean, people
you
talk
don't
about
think
meme
that's stealing?
theft all the time, right? Obviously, I disagree with that. I think it's far different to
Yeah, it's a little silly.
YouTube creation. Obviously, that is silly, but people talk about it and people get frustrated by it. So, well, you got loads of traction out of my meme that I posted, and that's visceral to them, right? I absolutely disagree with their point of view. I think that it's far different to something that's actually monetizable, like YouTube content. But you can see where that same point of logic comes from, right?
Okay.
I see it as feeling that you were robbed of something that you probably weren't actually robbed of. But the meme thing is, like you said, these are two things that are a little different than like video content on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I think, yeah, go for it.
Everybody shut up. I now want closing statements. We're going to start with the bottom right. MTG, you go first.
As I said, as far as I'm concerned, I do not want any platforms to crack down on any of this. As I said at the start, really, I think this is an argument about etiquette. It's an argument about what the very small things that React content creators should do to necessitate A, that they're making sure that there is benefit going to people that are being used, and B, that what they're doing is sufficiently transformative, right? And so, as I've stated previously, there are plenty of things that it would take you basically no effort to do to send people to the way so that things are definitively mutually beneficial, like putting the link so that people can have it muted in the background so that it generates algorithmic views and algorithmic boost for the people that you're engaging with, that the content that you're then creating on the back end is something that is new, something that is transformative, that creates something that people would go to you specifically for rather than go to the original video. Otherwise, why would they go to you in the first place? And make sure proper credit is given so that people know where to go in those instances, right? I think that those are the main thrusts of it.
MTG, can you also give a quick rundown of what you do, what you talk about, and your links, please?
So I am at No Justice MTG everywhere. So that's Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. I stream. I don't know what's GMT to Eastern.
5 hours. Eastern's 5 hours behind.
Okay, I'm either 2 p.m. Eastern or 9 a.m. Eastern.
What times do you stream? So 7 and
1.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah, and I just talk about Brit-Bunga politics. I talk about online Twitch stuff, and I sometimes talk about American politics as well, because often British politics is far too boring for that, although not recently.
And there's a lot of overlap there, isn't there?
And there's also a lot of overlap. I mean, American politics affect everybody, so I'll sometimes cover that too, and then sometimes international stuff as well. Yeah, that's what I do.
Cool. Okay, Graham, closing statement plus your links and a quick brief of what you do for my chat, please, darling.
Sure. Yeah, I think the kind of equivocations of it being of React content being theft, I think are way overblown. I think that making a big stink about React content outside of like anime or TV shows or movies, I think does more harm to smaller streamers and to the content at large than anyone who's watching, I don't know, Adam something or whatever YouTube video that they're watching. I think this big stink we make about it is much more harmful because it's going to draw more ire to the platform. I think the kind of prescriptive arguments for, being a little more kind to the people whose videos we're watching, shouting them out and stuff, I think that's fine. I completely disagree with the idea of like having your chatters open up a second tab while you're watching a video. I think that's silly. by and large, I think a lot of it is concern trolling, but I do hear the kind of motivations behind it, and I respect at least where your heart's at. I just think that kind of where we want to go are two different places. Other than that, it was a nice conversation. I don't think anybody's really like, has a lot of animosity towards each other after this. But anyway, I'm live Monday through Friday, Central Standard Time, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Sometimes we go live on Saturday nights for community nights. Other than that, yeah, Gremlo on Twitch.
Graham, do you want to plug your other channel as well?
Oh yeah, I have a gaming channel. It's just Gremlo GG. It looks like Gremlo Egg whenever you read it out. I don't know why I did it like that. But yeah, you guys can go
You're a
check that one
himbo,
out
that's
too.
why.
What's up?
Because you're a himbo, that's why.
That's true.
You know, it would fucking help if I could type to shout out your other fucking channel. Double Shine, you're up. Same thing, please. Closing statement, links, a brief of what you do, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so I think that in general, React content is going to exist on this platform. It is a very integral part of what streamers do, ranging from someone as big as Hassan to your average, 2-viewer politics streamer. As such, I think it's important for us to develop healthy relationships between Twitch streamers and YouTube content creators or any other kind of content creator. While the idea of copyright law can often be very difficult to understand and there's very little precedent on it, the idea of copyright itself, the idea of owning the product that you have put time and effort into creating, I think that is a very valuable thing and should be preserved. I think that you do have the right to distribute your work as seen fit. And the best way that we can do to encourage people to keep making cool content is to also give them the fair credit that they deserve, as well as when we are using their content, do our best to be transformative as possible and not try to skirt by on these gray lines with such small things as they simply have to be conscious to consider it transformative. Ultimately, I think that it's not going anywhere, and I would rather see us take steps right now to create a healthy environment rather than see tighter things come down the road, as we've already seen with music and film, where it is significantly harder to watch that stuff or consider it transformative content. Even the big YouTube video essays have a very, very hard time using film just because of how tight the restrictions are. Finally, I'm Doubleshine TV on Twitch and Twitter. I play games, and sometimes I yell at people. You can come watch me play Elden Ring and die 100 times to the same boss. I stream mornings, PST. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you know I love having you, dude. Even
Thank you.
you do lose debates about microtransactions to me.
I know. We'll see the rematch on that one.
Right. Alec, you fabulous bearded beanie baby, you're up.
I do my best. First of all, I want to say I didn't want to step on any toes earlier, Lexi. I'm sure you're a great streamer. I just like, moderating and all that. And anyway,
I've been moderating for longer than you've been streaming, dude. I know what I'm doing.
All right. Anyway, I guess my final perspective on this is I think the focus with this conversation is in the wrong place. I think that it would behoove us much better to put the onus on the larger companies to compensate people correctly. I think that this would be a much less of a deal, like a big deal, if that were to be done. Because the main issue that I'm hearing is that content is being stolen, right? And it's not so much that like it's being stolen in a manner of I can no longer access my video, you have the rights to my video now. Like none of that is what you're talking about. You're talking about stealing viewership, which really matters most when you're talking about like the finances that you lose from that, right? So if you want these people to be compensated correctly, now I still think, by the way, that we have we have a so there is a societal expectation, I guess, on Twitch and YouTube that we credit people for their work. I think that that is a good standard to keep. I don't know how that would be enforced by any terms of service or anything. I think that it's a good standard, and I think we should continue to do that. Ultimately, though, I think that this conversation would be better geared toward, what can we tell the corporations to do? What can we tell YouTube and Twitch to do better that will make it so that we can do what we love, and so that YouTube content creators can do what they love, and still be able to pay rent and whatever. You know what I mean? So I don't have strong feelings either way on this particular argument. I understand, I'm centrist both sides, Andy, right? But I do think that again, just there's a better conversation to be had, in my opinion.
Yeah, you want to plug yourself, bud?
Oh yeah. I am Alec Gunter, AlecGunter. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Alec Gunter. I am on Twitter at TTV Algun, and I'm on YouTube as well. I don't have like an exact link. You can find me on there though, where I will probably be uploading this debate. So yeah, you can find me on all those places. And thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'm always happy to have you.
All right.
So for clarity, because I know I came across a little bit curt then, and I didn't realize it until after I'd said it. What I meant to say was, I know you didn't mean to step on toes. I've been doing this long enough to know that I can butt heads with people I am moderating without having an issue.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
I am super autistic
good,
and sometimes not clear with my language.
I completely understand. It's okay. Thank you for clarifying.
I just wanted to make sure there was no misunderstandings with what I meant.
No, there's no bad blood here with anybody here. Me and Double Shine have already, we got a good relationship, so I don't want to ruin it.
Really cool to see you again, man. It was fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Backcloud. I'd never met any of you before.
Yeah.
Backcloud, you know what to do. Go follow everyone in this fucking panel because I said so right the fuck now. Because if you don't, I will come to your house. I will cut down the trees in your front garden, stuff them in the ground upside down, and then hang pickles from the roots. Do what you told.
Garden.
I will find a way to make it work. I'll use your house.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Okay, thank you all for coming. It was wonderful.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good one.
Later.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Have a good one, everyone.
Mwah.
See ya.
Bye.